the worst line to suck a real estate agent in. But the reality is most agents are struggling, and they think to themselves, hey, this is going to take care of me for the next year, and it's only going to cost me one commission check versus saying that I'm going to get 10 deals off of this thing.
The real estate industry is an industry built on tradition. And Chad gets tired of me telling this story too, but I remember a long time ago I was impacted by this.
The problem with our search functions and what we do right now is it's so rudimentary that it does not capture the most important parts. That's where we want to develop our AI to be able to capture for people.
I am so excited today to have Chad and Rob. They are the founders of Swyvvl. And wait until you hear about this technology platform and you hear about some of the background, and their founder story is pretty exciting. They are definitely going to change the way the real estate industry is done today. So everything as you know, just forget about it. You're going to hear all about what's happening from these two geniuses right here. So let's get into the conversation.
Oh, you're far too kind.
Oh, what a great intro. We're done. Let's end this thing because it's not going to get any better.
It's about time someone recognizes our genius.
I know. No, seriously though, I look at it like anyone that disrupts something, because you guys are disrupting, right? You're disruptors right now. And I am a fan of disruption. Okay. We talked about this a little bit. I love disruption. I think when something disrupts, you have to pay attention. Introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Chad. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Swyvvl. A little bit of my background. I've been in real estate for almost a little over 19 years now. And during that time, I've owned 3 real estate brokerages. Personally, I've helped over 1,000 clients buy and sell homes, and I've trained probably about 200 plus agents. So that's my background. And as we get into this a little further, you'll see that's where Swyvvl came from. That's where my drive and desire came from Swyvvl, because of my deep experience on the retail level of real estate. And we'll get into it a little bit more about, hey, how are these other platforms like Redfin and Trulia and Zillow, who runs them, what's their experience, and how are they built, and why are they built that way, and why are we built differently? So that's just a little quick background on my side. And here's my co-founder and CTO, who puts together all the things that in my brain is sitting there, but technology wise, there's no effing way, excuse my language, but it gets a little rough sometimes, but there's no way I could put it together on my end.
Yeah, well, my name is Rob Brower. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Swyvvl. And, I spent the last couple decades in the digital media and information technology spaces. Sorry if you feel like I'm leaning in towards you, Chad, but I just realized where the sun is setting right now, it's like coming through the blinds, and I've got this right in my eyes. Yeah, no, I'm really just interpreter, if you will. Like Chad said, he casts vision for what he wants, and I start answering the questions. Can it be done? How quickly can it be done? Can it be done in budget? Can it be done in time? Can it be done easily? Can it be done with the resources we have, or do we have to go out and secure more resources?
Is it ever easy?
Does that technology actually exist right now? No, it does not. And then we have to prioritize, is this a now solution? Is it a future solution, or is it a never solution? And we like to try not to ever put anything in that never solution category. We put it in more of a possible right now, possible in the future. We're not sure yet, but we'll have to figure out a way to make it work. I grew up in the Tacoma area. I just had an early fascination with computers, and it just grew from there to technology and became an early adopter. We're in an industry where we're trying to disrupt it. And the good news is, ever since my first report card in kindergarten, I've been called a disruptor. So we're good. We're good there.
It's actually funny. I was talking to someone about this earlier. My first report card in kindergarten said I talk too much.
Look at you two.
That just meant you had a future in podcasting, right?
I just had a future in sales. It is what it is. Funny how those report cards as a kid tell us what we're going to do when we grow up. Okay, so you guys, you obviously have experience in the industry, experience in technology, so this isn't something new for you. Chad, you've had a couple of brokerages, right? Part of your history is that you've had brokerages, and how did you evolve into where you're at now? Because you still have a brokerage, and you have this now. So how did this kind of come about?
Well, I started in real estate literally 3-4 months before the Great Recession hit. Amazing freaking timing, right? I started where people were sitting there, and agents were working what was called floor time back then, just handling, phone calls that came in and clients who came in off the street, and they were making 6 figures. They were doing really, really well. And then the Great Recession hit, and they all went away. Literally, we just saw agent after agent after agent leave the business, but I was just starting to learn the business. And one thing you learn about in this business is, in all honesty, and I'll say this, the big franchise brokerages don't like to hear it, but let's be honest, there's very little support. You will figure it out on your own 98% of it. So I was given a phone book, the white pages, and I was given a phone and a desk, and it was good luck, make it on your own. So, that was my start in real estate. And what I did for the next 6 months is, the market was tanking, and in the Seattle area, we lost 40-50% of the value of our homes over the next year or so. We got to the point where our listings where we would be dropping the price on our listings, and we couldn't catch up with how fast the pricing was dropping off of it. But I thought to myself, who's the one source of business where they have tons of listings and they can afford to drop the price, and they are dropping the price. And I thought, foreclosures. So I started calling banks. For about 6 months of calling banks, been calling Chase for that entire time. And I've been calling the same phone number. And the girl who was the asset manager always told me, no, I got my people. And there was a new person who was at that phone that day. And she said, hey, what area do you cover? And I'm like, hey, I cover the Seattle area, said just where I'm at. She goes, hey, I got like 6 properties. And she goes, do you know what you're doing? And I lied off my ass. And I said, of course I know what I'm doing. 100%. I'm brand new. Am I going to turn down 6 listings? And I was off to the races. I literally went from basically handling, and to all those asset managers out there now I do really know what I'm doing. But, back in 2007, 2008, I wasn't, but I was off to the races. So I went from about doing like 0 to closing like 20 to 30 deals a month based off of that. I gained a lot of traction. And then after 2 years of being in the business, I could, at that time, they changed it, but I could get my designated broker's license. So at 2 years, I got my designated broker's license and started my first brokerage. I ended up leaving and I started my first brokerage. And like I said, it was kind of off to the races from there. I've been through a couple brokerages, and in all honesty, one of the changes was divorce related. So that brokerage, I handed off. Not that I'm a vindictive person, but that brokerage ended up falling apart without me. And I started my next one with all of this. So guess what? Who won? Anyway, so that's my history of my different brokerages. This really is my last one that I'm doing with all of it. We've been around for about 10 years. Okay. It's called Elite Properties, and we service the Western Washington area. We keep it purposely very intimate and very small. I don't go more than 30 agents, probably about 17, 18 right now. I run an internal team in addition to the traditional agents on the traditional side, because I want to make sure that the agents, if at all possible, have the ability to make a good living. We know that in this business, 87% of all agents are out of the business in about 5 years or less. We know that 50% of all agents don't do a deal in a year. We know that on average, an agent does about 4 to 5 deals in a year. We know that the average salary for an agent is about $40,000 or $45,000. We have all these really, really bad stats. Not everybody's Josh Altman for $1 Million Listing. That is truly the outlier with all this. So as I've worked through my real estate career, I have developed a strong dislike for platforms like Redfin, Trulia, Zillow, that they were the new thing 20 years ago. Really, I challenge agents to say, hey, what's changed in the last 20 years? How has our industry changed other than a Redfin or Trulia, Zillow coming in and trying and taking all the information, putting it into one central location, one central resource, but out and connecting agents with those buyers and sellers. But I challenge them to say, hey, how have things improved? How have things changed in the last 20 years? And I think we are really completely set up for a disruptor in our industry of someone who came in and said, hey, guess what? I'm going to let you behind the curtain. I'm going to tell you the sneaky parts that are happening. I'm going to tell you where the money's going, and I'm going to tell you how we can change all of this.
I love that. And you said something a minute ago that was like, this industry has a ton of bad stats, tons, right? We have, like you said, 87% of people fail within the first 5 years. The perception that the consumer seems to have is that agents make a lot of money, when the reality is that they don't. The other side of that is there's a lot of agents who are coming into the business on their second or third career. I feel like the minority of agents now are like long-term agents, are coming in at a really young age. Most of them are coming in their 50s. 55, I think, is the average age for a real estate agent. Yeah, I think it's like 55 is what I checked last time. So I think there's a lot to be said about everything. Rob, where do you come into the picture? And then how did you guys develop this platform? What makes you think that you have the ability and the skill set? And I'm sure you do, but why do you have the ability and the skill set to build something that's going to take on a big giant like Zillow or Redfin?
Yeah, that's a good question. The genesis of the story is, Chad, with his experience in the real estate industry, came up with this idea because he had these pain points, like, what's going on and what can I do about it? So I own a digital media company. We do national websites. We do, branding and, graphic design, all that stuff, right? Anything to increase your digital media footprint. And he came to us and contracted us to build a website. Chad had drawn out the website that he wanted. He said, listen, he saw a design that he liked, and he says, this is what I want. And he handed us a stack of pages that he had hand drawn, what the menus were going to look like and everything. And he says, can you build this for me? And we said, yeah, our team can build that for you. So we did. We built him that website, and it was a process. And we were having weekly meetings to check in on progress and, things like that. We were gearing up. The plan was to launch this first version of the platform down in Vegas at the Inman Connect show. And it was like coming down to the wire. Like, I mean, it was like a week or two away where we had to get our money in and, you know, all that to go. And there was a couple of things. Asked a very innocent question. And he said, hey, do we know how it looks on mobile? And I said, hey, let me ask my developer. And so I call up my developer and I'm like, hey, bro, how's it looking on mobile? He goes, it wasn't spec'd for mobile. Chad only drew out a desktop site. And I mistakenly assumed that, you know, in this day and age, my developer would have known to do a side-by-side build. So then I wound up having to put in the hours. And it was not a fun conversation, by the way, to go to your client and say, yeah, we didn't build it in mobile.
I was very understanding.
I was
extremely, I was very proud of how understanding I was. I'll be honest with you, what he doesn't tell you about this freaking story is I got a phone call like 11:45 at night. I'm in bed with my wife. You know, the phone call, you know, it rings. I'm looking, I'm like, oh, Rob normally doesn't call me at 11:45. And then the flip side of it, let's be honest, right? What's the saying? There is no freaking good phone calls that come in at 11:45 at night. Yeah. And, you know, he was calling me to give me the bad news, which then involved me throwing on some clothes.
It was bad news good.
And driving over and us having a conversation. But, you know, this is the thing, and as we digress, in business, nothing's linear, right? There's nothing that's a straight line. You know, you are going to take one step forward and at the beginning, a step and a half, 2 steps back. And you are going to be constantly doing that until you start gaining your traction. And it was, you know, one of many, but it was one of our first, you know, true challenges of, hey, we're now off our plan. We're now off script. You know, how are we going to react to it?
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, if it were easy, everybody would do it. My background is, you know, I was a software developer for a national corporation, and I decided to go the entrepreneurial route because I didn't like spending 60 hours in a cubicle cranking out code for somebody else who doesn't understand technology, but because they have an MBA, they know everything. It's been a while since I'd been the code jockey. I got to the point where I hired code jockeys and I pay them to keep up with the latest coding techniques. So here I was, and after that midnight conversation, this is what, you know, came of it. I says, I'm going to put in the extra hours, and you're going to have, by the time he finishes on the desktop site, you're going to have a responsive, dynamic mobile app as well. And so I did. I have a couch in my office and I slept on it quite a few nights. And luckily we have a shower in the office and everything. And so there were times where I'm putting in a 20-hour day to make sure things are getting done, grab a few hours of sleep on the couch and then wake up and start all over again, you know? And so we did that. And over that time, what really happened was Chad and I also began developing a friendship. And we got to a point where we had earned the right to speak honestly into each other's lives. We were in this position where we were being paid to develop a product that the client had designed. And we weren't in the design game for this product. We weren't the designers. Chad had already designed it. And so, but we had to sit down and basically ask the question, is this worth spending the money to take this version of the product, the trade shows, present it to the world and say, here we are. And everything from the name of the platform, the branding, the functionality of the website. And the decision was, no, it's not. So the question was, do we scrap it all, say, hey, we had a good run, you know, we'll see you around? Or do we dig in and do we say, if we were able to build it from the ground up and do it all over again, what would we do differently? And that's the route we took. And at that time, I let Chad know that I really believe the idea is killer. I mean, it's a banger idea. And I said, here's the deal. I love it so much. You had just paid me and my team to develop a website. I didn't know if Chad wanted to dip back in and pay for that all over again. You know, I made a super wise business decision of getting paid to make a website to paying money to buy into the company and become a co-founder, then put in, I don't know how many hours now, I've lost track of work to get it to where it is now. But you know what? I don't regret it at all. It was the right decision. Chad had a great idea, but that question that you asked, you know, what makes you think you have the skills and expertise? Well, Chad didn't. And I didn't have the real estate expertise. So even if I had come up with this idea, I wouldn't have known where to go real estate wise. Chad didn't know where to go tech wise. And so at that point, we started to divide and conquer. We rebranded as Swyvvl, rebuilt the website from the ground up, gave us an opportunity to add some things. Every time I opened my mouth, we would add a new feature or Chad would come in and ask for a new feature. But I still remember to this day, I was just kind of wrestling things in my head. And I said, so wait a second, people are going to go find a house and then they're going to come to Swyvvl and they're going to have agents on Swyvvl bid on how much of their commission they're going to give back. But my question is, if they're already on another site and they found the house on the other side, why wouldn't they just stay on that site? I mean, it seems like a hassle. Sounds like we need to have a home search portal on our site. And so Chad goes, how do we do that? I said, I have no idea. So we started looking into it, and building the back end of the home search portal is easy. Getting the data, on the other hand, was...
It's like the data mafia out there. It truly is.
It really is.
You do not know what we have found out is how much money that stuff is worth. I mean, it is amazing. And the reality is this is, as time has went on, these companies that would gather this data and make it available to whether it's IDX stuff for the MLS, whether it's county tax record, whatever it is, they have all conglomerated. They've all bought each other out. So there's really like 2 or 3 companies that have access to this, and it is an arm and a leg. I mean, even off the IDX search, okay, we were looking at a couple of different companies that do it, and there's only a couple of them that do it, and it's like $60,000 a month. Insane. I mean, when you think about $50,000 a month for a startup, we're not Homes.com. We're not blowing through $1 billion in advertising trying to grab market share by basically just overwhelming people. So you're looking at this and you're like, there's no way. There's just no way. And this is the thing about business I've learned. You have to get very good with business, especially in small business, of doing about 100 times more with the same dollar that a company that is big, like, or Zillow or Trulia or whoever it is, does with that same dollar. And you have to learn to be, and some way you got to find a way to be successful doing that, because you can't compete with them when you start off on a dollar for dollar basis, right? We can't throw $1 billion into advertising like Homes.com did to go from like the number 10th ranked site to like the number 3 ranked site or whatever the deal is in order to try to gain that traction. And that really is, like, for example, with the data thing, we got fortunate. We found a partner that we were able to, partner up with, and we were able to get that data for a fraction, which allows us now to have a nationwide home search on our site, where the number of companies that have that is very, very, very small. Third-party real estate platforms that have a nationwide home search on their thing. It's expensive. It's tough to do. And we got fortunate enough to be able to do it. So it solved a pain point. It solved a problem that we had on our platform of saying, hey, we need to go from a second tier website where we are not providing everything that the people we're competing against are, to being now providing everything that they have while disrupting the industry, while providing the additional things that benefit home buyers and home sellers and real estate agents in ways that they don't.
I love that your philosophy is not just about more transparency for the consumer, but also protecting the agent too. Because I think that's what's unique about your background is that, you have, Rob, you don't have the real estate background. So you probably have a lot of like different perspective from like the consumer standpoint versus Chad. You've got that like real estate agent, like I want to protect the agents sort of. There's like a happy medium.
Oh, 100% there is. Yeah.
And so I think that that's kind of what I see you guys doing is finding that happy medium where the consumers feel like there's full transparency. The agents don't feel like they're having to give away. Because so often the agents are giving away their money and their commission to Zillow, to give leads to them. And, they're giving away so much of it. Whereas I feel like you've kind of found this balance.
Well, let me tell you that pain point for real estate agents. And this is where, most of those platforms, for example, like, for Redfin, et cetera, they're built by tech bros. They're built by men and women who have never, ever once worked on real estate on the retail level. So they can't understand what it's like to be able to help a client buy or sell a home. They can't understand what it's like to take a client lead, follow up with them for 3, 6, 9 months, a year plus, okay, getting them pre-approved, taking them out to search for homes, having it fall out through, inspection or whatever it is, finally getting that home to close, and then finally getting a commission check. They will never understand how difficult that is of a process. And then you have to repeat it over and over and over and over again. So I've literally had agents in my office because they're desperate to be successful, right? We got that 87% failure rate. They're desperate to be successful. And they get a phone call from Trulia or Zillow or whoever and says, hey, guess what? We're going to be able to give you 10, 12 really high quality leads every month. You're going to have a great conversion ratio with all this. And guess what? It's only going to cost you $6,000 a month. And then what do they give you? What's that line that I hate? And I apologize, but it's horrible. I hear it so much. It's only one commission check. The worst line to suck a real estate agent in. But the reality is most agents are struggling and they think to themselves, hey, this is going to take care of me for the next year. And it's only going to cost me one commission check. This person saying that I'm going to get, 10 deals off of this thing. I'm good. But the reality is they get 3 months into the process. They had their conversion ratio is about 1 to 3% because that's what it is in real life for average for most agents. And they're realizing, hey, I'm going to get 120 leads, roughly over this time period, over a year. I'm roughly paying $6,000 a month for it. There's no guarantee what type of leads I get, what type of quality leads, price point, or anything else like that. I'm really going to close 1 to 3 of these. And now the numbers don't start adding up. Right. And now they're in my office, and I've had this experience, and I've had it every year of my life as a broker, where they're upset. They can no longer pay the fee because they're not getting the returns as fast as they believed they were going to be getting or were told they were going to get it. They're figuring out, hey, I just called them up. They're not going to let me cancel my year-long contract that I've been locked into. And now we're talking about, hey, what are you going to do? Are you going to cancel the credit credit card? Are you going to close the bank account that's being drawn on? Because that's the only things that we have left, and hope that they don't come after you with, on the credit, or excuse me, on the collection side of things. And that's where we're at. So when we were building this, we said, okay, guess what? We literally have billions of dollars. Each one of these companies is making billions of dollars every year off of client referral fees and marketing fees, just exorbitant client referral and marketing fees. How can we take this money that's already being spent, and how can we give it back to the actual players in the game, the actual people who are involved in it, which is the buyers, the sellers, and the real estate agents? And we figured, hey, by erasing some of the negatives of these programs, for example, exorbitant upfront fees, really giving the control over their client acquisition, because they can look on Swyvvl as we go more into this, they'll understand it. They can look on Swyvvl and see what type of clients are sitting there, what price range they're looking at, how quickly or how soon they're looking to purchase, and they can determine and say, hey, in order to secure this $2 million client in the Bellevue area, I'm willing to share this amount of the commission. And maybe if I'm only securing a $300,000 client, I'm only willing to invest this amount of commission. The good part of it is I don't have to pay any of this until I successfully close. So that means I already have the money sitting in the bank. And while the overall commission may be, $15,000 and I may be giving up $5,000, I'm still getting 10 grand of it with it. So it allows them to make those decisions and allows them not to have to put that money up front. So that it benefits the real estate agent. And in the flip side, they're investing into their client. So when I say on repeat business, if Rob's my client and he has gotten, let's say, $5,000 from his agent on his side of things, how much more likely is he to refer his family, his friends, everybody he knows to that agent? So you're also getting that repeat business on a much higher level. But again, like I said, we remove a lot of those pain points of upfront fees, long-term memberships that you can't get out of. We make sure that you only pay for success on that side of things, that you're able to use your client acquisition costs, because we all have them, right? Whether it's social media and you're doing editing, whether you're doing boosting campaigns, whether you're doing marketing, whatever it is, open houses, every client has an acquisition cost. With our platform, we allow agents to determine what their acquisition costs are, and they don't pay those acquisition costs outside of our membership fee, but they don't pay those acquisition costs until they have success.
Yeah, so that's cool, because that actually was my next question, is like, how does it change, right? Because I've seen platform, and I'm sure you probably hear the objection of like, well, I don't want to give up my commission. I feel like I have to discount my commission, right? But when you explain it the way you explain it, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah. Like I said, every client we have has a client acquisition cost. It's like owning a 7-Eleven. You have to stock it, right? You have to, and I tell my agents when we're building their business plans out, you have to invest some money into your business in order to be able to have it come out. But the good thing about it is we really reduce the risk to about as small as you can possibly get it, to where the point is that you don't pay any of that investment until you successfully close. And you also get to decide what type of clients you want to work with. And you got to decide how much is that client worth to invest into in order to bring them into your business. So I do think that we really hit a sweet spot that, like you talked about, yes, we're helping buyers and sellers, but we're really helping real estate agents with another client stream that they can bring into their businesses that has a minimal risk compared to what they're going to get with like a Redfin or Trulia, Zillow, those types of programs.
Fair.
I mean, you had kind of asked like how it worked. And for your listeners that don't know, basically, if you go on to the competitor right now, do a home search, a nationwide home search. We have a nationwide home search. You find a house that you like and you click a button to get connected to an agent that you don't know that's going to represent you in the purchasing of that house. And at the end of the day, for example, in Seattle right now, the average new home price just hit $1 million. And so you're going to buy $1 million house and there's going to be about $36,000 of commissions going out between the buying and selling agents, right? That agent, like Chad said, is already paying Zillow, say $7,000 a month. And so one of the interesting things for us is as we've been approaching agents and brokerages is we're getting the same questions. I've learned from the outside looking in, agents have been doing the same thing the same way for so long that it's hard for them to even grasp the idea that this is different. So we get questions like, okay, so we pay you $199 a month. We said, yes, it's a subscription model, $190 a month, but it's month to month. You can cancel anytime. And they go, okay, so once we close a deal, then what do we give you on the back end? They're like, come on, what's the catch? There is no catch. And I'm like, racking my brain going, Chad, are agents seriously like, are they really just not getting this? And we realized at that moment that part of our hurdle was going to be educating agents and educating home buyers and sellers, because a lot of them just don't really know how the system works, and we've had agents argue, and I don't know if it's all agents, but a lot of the agents that I've met so far in this journey aren't the best at math. And they're arguing.
They only know 3%. They can do anything by 3%.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
2.5% and 3%.
So
awesome.
So
Yeah,
when
just
we
have
go,
2%, we got you.
they go, wait a minute. If the commission is 3%, then you want me to give up 30%? I'm like, well, yeah, you're giving up 30% of that 3%, though. And that's when their eyes gloss over. And they're like, huh? I said,
It's like a
let's say,
referral fee.
yeah. I said, let's say you bid 50%. That means 50% of your commission. And if your commission is 3%, then that means you're going to keep 1.5% and they're going to get one. And they're like, you lost me. And so we show them, you probably saw on our website, we've got a commission refund calculator and we pull that up and we show them. So this is how much is out there total, 36,000. If you bid 50%, you're giving 18,000 to your client and you're keeping 18,000. That's how that works. And they're like, oh, hey, that's pretty good. So I can still make 18,000 on that sale. Yes, you can, you know?
So then operational question. If I'm an agent and I'm using your platform, am I writing it back in the contract, or is it like something that you guys take care of on your side, the rebate to the client?
Good question.
No, this is happening between the agent and their client. So, for example, like we know with everything that happened with NAR and the lawsuit that happened with NAR, et cetera, we now know that there's even more flexibility than there was before, even basically 2 years ago, right? So basically on this end, as the agent, they can decide with the buyer, they can say, hey, I'm going to take this money that we've agreed upon that I was going to share with you, and they can give that to the client through the contract, right? Through our commission disbursement form. They can decide to use that to their closing costs, their down payment. They can decide to do that as a commission refund after everything has closed. They have a bunch of different routes that they can do in order to be able to give that money back, and that's between them and the client. So we're not involved in that happening. Now, if something happens and it doesn't happen properly, then we get involved. But that's between the agent and the client as far as how that money is going to be distributed.
So is your platform open for agents of all brokerages to use?
Yes. Yeah. We are not, we are a third party platform. We're not, owned by a franchise, a Century 21 or an EXP or anything else like that. Wizard in the background pulling all the little strings on that side. No, it is available nationwide, even though marketing wise, as we are going through our, our seed round of funding and we're doing our proof of concept, we're focusing on just certain areas as far as marketing and money that way, but it is available nationwide. It can be used by any agent, any home buyer and home seller throughout the nation at this point.
So they just go to the website, Swyvvl. By the way, everyone, if you're listening, okay, you can see on Chad's shirt how it's spelled. If you're listening, it's SWYVVL.
Yes,
so it's
SWYVVL.com.
Yeah, so you say SWV. SWV? Like you say SW, I'm like SWV. I want to.
Chad, do you know anything about SWV?
Oh, I know.
Sisters with Voices? Oh, man.
I don't want to admit it, but
Wayback Machine.
It's aging me, but yes, I do.
I was going to say, we probably all remember Sisters with Voices, so there we go.
Yes, we do. We do.
Anyway, when I very first saw it, I was like, does that say SWV? No, it's SWYVVL. Okay, so you probably already answered this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So my audience really, they're obsessed with systems and leverage. That's really what I'm all about. Systems, leverage, because we in real estate, you can burn out. You can burn out real fast because there's so many different things thrown at us every day. So how does your model, or how could the Swyvvl platform help them build a business that's less burnout prone?
Yeah, like I said, we keep it very simple. So this is how it works. And I know we've kind of been dancing around it, but I think I'll just clarify it. So home buyer, home seller comes onto the platform. They create what's called a client profile. And in that client profile, they declare what type of home they're looking to purchase or what type of home they're looking to sell. So they will say, hey, if they were a buyer in the Seattle area, they're saying, hey, I'm looking to purchase a home in the Seattle area. I'm looking to do it within the next, 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. I'm looking for a 3+ bedroom house, 2+ bathrooms. I'm looking to spend, $1 million to $1.2 million. Or they say, hey, whether I'm pre-approved or not, or whether they're paying cash. And then that client profile then goes active on our platform where agents are able to look at it and say, okay, here's an area that I service. Here's potential clients, buyers and sellers. Here's what they're either selling or buying. Here's the background information that allows them to then make a decision whether they want to get involved in the share experience or their instant agent connect experience in order to try to land that client. Okay. But the way that it keeps it very, very simple on our side is I always tell my agents, I said, hey, you want 3 to 5 revenue streams or client streams coming into your business. Okay. And what Swyvvl does is it allows them to have a revenue stream that's coming into their business for a very, very small amount of money. $199, we wanted to keep it very affordable for agents, but it allows them to have an additional revenue stream that's coming into their business where they're able to have a very clear picture of the type of clients that are sitting there, and they're able to make that decision whether or not to invest that money in order to secure them as a client. And then, like we said again, if they do win that share experience, then they secure them as their client. But outside of their membership fee, they don't pay anything until the ending, until it closes. So they don't have that additional money going buying out. So, and that's really the problem with us, right? It's our burn rate. The burn rate that we have as real estate agents, because we're paying for CRM systems, we're paying for advertising and marketing, we're paying for transaction coordinators, everybody in their grant. I always liken it when I talk to my wife. I said, the real estate industry is much like gold mining, because I read with gold mining during the rushes, who made all the money? It wasn't the gold miners.
Nope.
The people who made all the money were the people selling the pickaxes and selling the food and selling the, the donkeys and the wood and everything else that had to be. And I feel like we are beset as real estate agents by a bunch of people who are getting rich off of us, but we're not the ones making the money.
Yes.
We're being sold this dream of the gold mine, right? We're being sold this dream of the Josh Altman, whoever it is. And this is where we're going to get to, while the vast majority will never, ever get to that. And we wanted to remove that facade. We wanted to say, hey, you're going to have additional things in addition to us if you want to build out a good business, but we're going to be one of the cornerstones of your business to be able to get you going with a very, very minimal amount of investment, and everything that you spend is going to be upfront. We're not going to make a promise and say, hey, guess what? We're going to give you these client leads and you're going to pay upfront for them, and supposedly you're going to get this amount of money from them, but it never ever happens that way. So that's how that we make things simple for real estate agents, so that we can be a very integral part of them building their business.
That's exciting. I look at it and I'm like, I think about the last major disruptor that we had in our industry. I mean, we're from Seattle, so we get it, right? It was Redfin.
Mm-hmm.
When Redfin came around, and this was 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah, about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. That they really hit the market, and it was 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, right? And so I look at that and see that and look what Redfin's done. They've just had this presence for so long, and it's forced other agents to really have a higher value proposition, in my opinion. They made the industry, at least in this area, change.
Let's kick back just a little bit, because I was talking to one VC, and he told me Glenn Kellman is a genius at Redfin. And I said to him at the moment, I said, he just lost $1 billion on a house flipping scheme. How is he an effing genius? I go, hold on. And it just gets, because these VC bros, they get very, and I'm like, how is he a genius? I go, if I lost $1 billion, I would be out of a job. And you're trying to claim that he's a guy that their stock has rarely went up. In fact, it went down by 90% off of their IPO. And let me pose a question to you. Have they ever, in the history of their existence, turned a profit?
The answer is no. And that's why Rocket bought them out. Yeah,
and they just got bought for $1.75 billion. But you want to know why Rocket, and this is why I tell home buyers and sellers and even agents, I'm like, the problem with our industry that starting 20 years ago, we started constricting and everybody started buying each other out. So for example, we know that Realtor, right, bought OpCity. We know that Redfin got bought by Rocket Mortgage. We know that Rocket Mortgage just bought Mr. Cooper. We know right now that Compass is buying Anywhere Real Estate. And for all the listeners that are like, well, what the heck is Anywhere Real Estate? No, most real estate agents will know that Anywhere Real Estate holds some of the biggest franchise names, such as Century 21, Berkshire Hathaway, etc. They're trying to basically take over about 40 to 45% of the market share. And that's the information that they have access to on their side of things.
Yep.
So as you start researching all of this, we know that, Zillow bought Trulia. I mean, it's all being constricted to where you have basically about 5 to 10 companies that probably control about 90% of the real estate marketplace. And that includes on the mortgage side and then also on the traditional real estate side.
And the tool side, because Zillow just bought Follow Up Boss too. So there's
right?
So there's so many, it's not even just the real estate and mortgage side, as a consumer, but it's within the industry too.
And then the information side is being controlled too. I mean, just here in Washington State, when I started in real estate, we had a bunch of individual MLSs. We had the Olympia MLS and there was the Seattle one, and there was all these things. But right now we know about 90% of the state is now covered by the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, probably outside of Spokane and in the Vancouver-ish Portland area with all of it. But the problem is that as all this information control has constricted, buyers and sellers, and including agents, have lost the ability to have a choice. They've lost the ability to have a choice of how they want to run their businesses. They've lost a choice of being able to decide which agents they want to work with, because guess what? Even though you may think you're working with Berkshire Hathaway, you're not working with Berkshire Hathaway. If you think you're working with Century 21, you're not working with Century 21. You may think Mr. Cooper is different than Rocket and Redfin, but they're not different than Rocket and Redfin on their ends of things. So there's this facade that there's choice out there, and that's why we need a disruptor. That's why we need somebody like Swyvvl to come in and say, hey, guess what? Here's what's going on behind your back. Here's when you go and find a house on Trulia, and and then you click the button, you want an agent to be able to represent you. That agent at the end of the day is either paying an upfront fee or a back end fee.
Yes.
That is 5, 10, 15,000 or more. We're talking about 30, 40, 50% of the overall commission. And guess what? Even though you as the buyer and seller, they're selling your information behind your back and you probably have no idea it's happening. You don't get to share any of that money. Number two, even though it's your business that's being sold. And number three, it's serving to artificially increase the cost of buying and selling a home, which is already massively expensive because guess how those costs are being passed on? They always end up being passed on to the consumer. And the consumer in this case in real estate is the agent, it's the home buyer, and it's the home seller. And the problem is that your normal home buyer and home seller, and in all honesty, most agents, because they're in and out of the business so fast, have no idea that this stuff is going on.
Right. It's like we don't look behind the scenes. So I fascinating. It's just fascinating because it's so true. It's so true, right? It's just like being an agent in the field, you don't think about all of that. You think about where am I going to get my next deal from? How am I going to put food on my table? How am I going to feed my family? Or how am I going to put gas in my car? I don't ever want to go back to a corporate job. So I've got to make this work, right? But you don't think about, the reality is of an agent's compensation, how much they actually taking home.
Exactly.
And we haven't even started talking about taxes, especially in Washington State.
No, we don't talk about office. Yeah, we don't talk about taxes. We don't talk about office splits. We don't talk about any of that stuff that comes to, right? Everyone sits there and goes and they automatically think, well, you just sold $1 million house. This is what you're going to get. But when you do the breakdown, I'll tell this story. So for 6 months, I didn't do a deal when I started. And I was working for Windermere at the time. And I finally got a deal. First deal. So freaking happy. My first deal. Woo! Yep. My check, because I had so many freaking fees, and everyone will be able to associate with this. My check was for $36. That's
$36.
$36 because I had been charging marketing fees that were going to the newspapers and everything else because back then that's what we were doing, right? So they would allow you to do your marketing, okay, at through the newspapers and all the local things. So you would do your open houses, you would do listings, you would do all these things. Well, those fees are backing up on you, and they're backing up on you. Desk fees, because they charge desk fees, office fees, the whole deal. If you were doing copying, it just goes on and on and on. So all these fees were backing up on me for 6 months. So I sell my $150,000 house back then at the time at 2.5%. And at Windermere, I had a 50% split. So you take that 2.5% at 150,000. Okay. 50% of it already goes to Windermere. What's left goes to me, 20% for taxes right off the freaking door. And then all my back expenses. And it was so anticlimactic. I'm
living the dream
for 30. And I'm not joking. It was $36. Okay. And off of it. And I'm like, this is how it's going to be. But those are the stories that you don't hear, right? But as you talked about, and I love that you brought it up, the agent that's out there grinding and saying, hey, how do I get this next deal in order to pay for my food and my car and my gas and everything else like that? Every agent who has successfully made it in this business has a story. Yes. We have this story of that moment, right? That you talked about, Linnea, that story of you're either going to be out of it or something happened that you were able to make happen that allowed you to stay in the business. Every single one of us has that.
I also think the longer term successful agents have more than one stream of income. I don't know any long-term successful real estate agent who's just selling houses. I don't know that I can name one, not one single agent. There's different things. They're doing different pieces of the business, right? Some of them are doing, some of them are building a team. I mean, I know people who, have, they own their own businesses or investing in real estate. There's a lot of other things. So I think that's another side of the industry that a lot of people don't see. The consumer doesn't necessarily see.
Yeah. I mean, and we know this in real estate. It's like this, right? I mean, the roller coaster is big up and down. And what I train my agents and one of the focuses of Swyvvl is, you're always going to have those ups and downs no matter what in real estate, right? We're fully 100% commission based, but we really want those ups and downs to be more like this than those deep troughs and those deep highs with all of it. And that's the important part. I mean, I know when I started with it, it was my sole source of income. So I really had no choice other than to be successful with all of it. There have been those moments. I mean, I tell Rob this story and he's heard it so many times, he's tired of hearing it from me. But the reality is as I had went through a divorce and I was starting my next brokerage, I got to the point where I couldn't afford my personal expenses and I couldn't afford my business expenses at the same time. I had just started to expand the office. So I took on a larger office space, all the support, everything financially that goes along with it. Divorce occurs and I am juggling all of this. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, hey, I can't keep the doors open with what I have going on and I can't keep my personal expenses. So something has to give. So I decided at that moment, and this is about what's inside of you, and I tell Rob this, I'm like, hey, hopefully someone doesn't have to make this decision, but you have to be willing to make this decision. I made the decision to live in my car for a year so that I could put all the money that I would have put towards rent, I would have put towards all my personal expenses into the business to keep the doors open. So I slept on an air mattress in my office and dodged the cleaning crew crews that came through. On nights that I couldn't do that, I literally slept in a sleeping bag on the driver's seat of my car out in a parking lot down the street. And I did those things in order to be able to buy that time to be able to build my business. And you have to have that dog in you. And if not, then you got to go do something else.
I totally agree. Rob, I'm curious, like, since this is like the industry is kind of new for you, what are some of the biggest things you've learned from your whole experience?
Well, yeah, one of the things that became apparent to me is that the real estate industry is an industry built on tradition. And Chad gets tired of me telling this story too, but I remember a long time ago, I was impacted by this. There was a study that was done, I believe it was out of Stanford, and they put a bunch of monkeys in an enclosure, and they had a ramp that they could go up and open the door and get some food. But what the monkey didn't know that was getting the food was that when they opened that door, all the rest of the monkeys are getting sprayed with cold water. It's not hurting them, but it's unpleasant. So then eventually the monkeys would start grabbing any monkey that starts going up the ramp and start beating it up. And pretty soon, none of the monkeys want to go up the ramp. So they started swapping out monkeys. And eventually, this enclosure is filled with monkeys that have never been sprayed with water, but still, anytime a monkey tries to go up the ramp, all of them jump on them and beat them up because that's the way it's always been done. And none of those monkeys knew why they were beating up that monkey, but they've been trained and conditioned to do that. And I feel like that's kind of the way it is in the real estate industry, is that agents have been told this is the way it's done. Everything from the commission, which resulted in the whole NAR lawsuit, right? This is just the way it's done. And so people just keep doing it that way. Oh, wait. When Chad told me, originally that was supposed to be a negotiable thing, every single contract. And I was like, I always thought it was like a fixed federal number, like 2.5% or 3%. I was like, I don't know. And because a home buyer and home seller doesn't know that stuff, like that's just the way it just kept being done. And so that's one of the things that I've learned. And then on the prop tech side, one of the things I learned, Chad already alluded to this, was that really these big companies like Zillow, I mean, we think of them and we put them in the real estate industry company, but really they're data brokers. That's what they are. They're making billions of dollars every year by buying and selling people's information. It is absolutely crazy. We had the opportunity after we went to a couple of real estate shows and things like that, national shows, to go out to dinner with some of these data people. It was interesting because when you said it was kind of like the Mafia, I mean, you're not wrong, dude. So some of the big wigs that own some of these large data corporations like showed up and everybody was like, oh, the Don's here, and it was like kiss my ring kind of thing. I mean, I was like, what do I do here? What's the protocol? But, it's absolutely fascinating industry. And so I started looking at all these things, and that just made me even more curious, like, why not us, right? No one's disrupted it because it's not disruptable. I mean, they thought the Titanic was unsinkable, and we know what happened there, right? So that's kind of the way that I see it. We're an iceberg, and the industry is the Titanic. We're going to come in, and they can ignore us and say, oh, no, we're indestructible. But we're going to do our thing, and we'll see what happens in the end. But I just think the simplicity of the idea is what is our strength, honestly.
This is our biggest advantage, and this is our biggest advantage for real estate agents. Platforms like Redfin and Trulia, Zillow, etc., they have been around for so long, or their business model is so locked in. I mean, you remember when we started doing referral fees, we were paying 10%, 15%. What are we at now? We're at 35, 40, 50%. Okay, I can name ones right now with Redfin that are 50%. Why? But yet they're not turning a profit. Why are they doing this? Because their business plan, they are so bloated. They are so bloated with the number of employees, with the number of expenses that they have, with their real estate that they own, everything that they have to keep on increasing these referral costs. Well, at a certain point, you can't do that anymore, right? I can only take so much money from Lynette. There's no way that I can keep on. So they're at that max, and they're not able to change their business plan. They can't change it to a business plan that helps real estate agents. They can't change it to a business plan that helps buyers and sellers, because that means giving up that money. And they have so many expenses that they can't flip around and do it. I mean, we talk about, for example, Blockbuster and Netflix all the time. Blockbuster should have kicked the ass of Netflix. They had all the infrastructure in place. They already had all the resources in place. They had everything in order to be able to make that pivot. The problem was they couldn't make that pivot because they had too many expenses, and their business plan was too wieldy to be able to make that trend. So we really feel that at this point, where we're at a thing where things haven't changed in 20 years. You got a real estate site that provides an IDX search, right? That provides information on what homes are on the market, and then connects them with real estate agents and makes money off of that entire process. Nothing has changed with all of that. And we're saying, hey, there's these billions of dollars that are already being spent. Let's give it back to the people who are actually involved in this process and let them decide how that money is spent. And we said the big thing is really just getting the message out there. And this is why we're doing things with people, doing the interviews. We appreciate you guys bringing bringing us on because, you know, a Trulia, Zillow, they don't want to hear from us. they want us, no, they want us to go away because right now we're just an annoyance. We're just a little annoyance. But as we gain traction, we're then become something that's going to knock them out of business. And in 5-10 years, as we build this thing, as we start challenging them in the way that they make money, that's when you're going to see things really start to change.
It's really exciting. I'm excited. I'm super excited to see where it goes.
Well, we are too. So it's glad to have that feedback from you.
Yeah, I like it. I'm actually thinking here because, you know, I coach agents. I work with tons of agents. And so I'm actually thinking like a lot of them are like, how do I make more money right now? And I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like, yeah, to me, it's almost like an easy fix. It's like an easy, like, hey, just go check this out. It's $199 a month. They don't pay anything until they close. I'm sure you guys probably have some other things in there. I don't know.
Well, the nice thing right now too, and I'll throw this out there, is that for their first year, and we're only doing this for a limited time as we're building up our user base, and we want to be able to allow agents. This is the thing that we know. We know that we are not pulling and this is where you know you're getting honesty. We know that we're not pulling the amount of activity as we are a startup, right? We are in our beta version and we are in our seed round of funding. We know we're not pulling the activity that a Trulia or a Zillow or Homes.com is pulling right now. So we don't feel comfortable charging real estate agents for what is going to basically be a product that is not running at 100% because you can't just hit the ground running at 100% when you launch. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes the word being spread. You know, there's all these things that happen. So for the first year, agents get to use us for free. So they're not even being charged that $199 a month. We want them to be able to come on the platform. We want them to be able to try it out on their end of things. We want them to get a full year of being able to kind of just experience it, see everything that it can benefit and determine if that's something that's going to fit into their business plan in the future. So there's not even a risk on that end right now for them.
So that's even better. So because I'm looking at that, I'm like, this is just, I can totally see this fitting into even like within my own organization of people. It's pretty exciting. What is your big, hairy, audacious goal for the next 5 years?
Oh, man.
I know what mine is. I have a good idea, but what's yours?
For Swyvvl, number one, I'm assuming we're getting funded, but for me, you know, it's a technology. Being able to do Swyvvl 2.0. Swyvvl 2.0 has been on the back burner since we started with Swyvvl 1.0. And like I said, whenever we have a concept and we go, let's introduce blockchain technology because we can do a lot of document signing and stuff using blockchain and smart documents, and it's more secure. Let's look into letting people use crypto to buy houses on our site. Can we implement that right now? No, we cannot. And do we have the resources to do that right now? No. So we push that back to 2.0. But with 2.0 comes this vision, Swyvvl going to the next level, not just being a site where you can get leads, but a site from which you can basically manage your entire business as a real estate agent. We want to be able to provide AI assisted tools that do a lot more than what's out there right now. And I'm being kind of vague on purpose because like I don't want to give away all of our R&D planning and, you know, that kind of thing.
Of course.
But we've got some ideas for what we're going to do with AI. And some of our ideas are big, hairy, audacious ideas because is this doable right now? And the answer is not that I'm aware of. So what that means is we're going to be innovating even in the AI space in order to innovate once again in the real estate space. And so I'm really excited about that. And these are things that I firmly believe, you know, in due time as we keep grinding, they're going to come.
I love it. Chad?
You know, mine really on my end, like Rob talked about the blockchain thing. I do really think that there is a huge market for that, for the agents and buyers and sellers to be able to be involved in that with cryptocurrency, etc. That really, I think, is our next frontier. The AI stuff, and I'll go just a little bit further than Rob does with it, and hopefully he doesn't kick me under the table or anything else like that. But this is the thing right now, if you look at platforms that are using AI, it's very rudimentary, especially on the real estate side. They're like, oh, you can talk to our platform and just say what you want for a home search, and we'll just do it rather than clicking the buttons. The problem is, and you'll appreciate this, how many times have you as a real estate agent had a client come to you and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, the type of house I'm looking for, this is the area I'm looking for, price range I'm looking for. You search with them for 6 months, looking all over the place for this. Okay, I had a client who said, hey, I want land that has a river that runs through it or a pond or a lake because I want to go on my little kayak and I want to kayak around. So I spent 6 months, and agents that are watching this will understand the frustration. So, and he was looking for this property. And then they send me a property about 6 months in. Damn it, that property wasn't within 10 miles of a river or a pond or a lake or anything that they had said that they wanted. The problem that we have right now is that the way that people look for homes, even though it is truly an emotional decision, the way that we search for homes, the way that we send homes to them, the way that they search for homes is not based upon, it does not capture the emotional decision with all of it because they cannot articulate to us what is emotionally connecting with them.
Correct.
For example, and I'll give a prime example of this. We have no idea, but let's say you have someone who's searching and they're looking at homes, but they don't know that every home that has a stainless steel Viking 8 burner range is really what they're spending more time looking at. They'll never be able to communicate that to you as a real estate agent. They don't even know it themselves because subconsciously it's not connecting with them. However, with AI, we want to build our system where as the person is searching, it's learning and it's saying, hey, guess what? For some reason, this person has looked at homes that has this factor, this element in the kitchen or the bathroom or the living room or the dining room over and over and over again. And they're spending more time looking at it, whether it's French doors, whatever the elements are, and then automatically recognizes that for the client and starts bringing those to the forefront with them. And that's where we want our AI to go. We think that the future of this is for real estate is being able to quantify the emotional decision, the emotional choices that human beings make. As we all know, you walk into a house and what is it, the first 30 seconds, they either know or they don't know. They haven't looked at how many bathrooms are there. They're not looking at how many bedrooms are there. None of that stuff. And the problem with our search functions and what we do right now is it's so rudimentary that it does not capture the most important parts. And that's where we want to develop our AI to be able to capture for people.
Love that. Okay. So much exciting stuff coming up. So
yes, yeah, we appreciate it. A lot of work.
Yeah, I bet. You guys sleeping at all right now?
I will try.
I mean, I will say the one thing I do like about where I'm at is I sleep 6 hours a night. So that's good. That's good. I think the other, Rob, you might have said it a minute ago when you were talking about like, why haven't people disrupted? Oh, yes, it was you. So you're talking about tradition. Why haven't people disrupted? I think a lot of it is because people in general, there's just not, the more people are scared or fearful than they are in the industry.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
And they don't even know where to start.
Right.
I mean, when we talk about it and you sit there and you say, okay, Homes.com spent $1 billion last year on their commercials, on their Super Bowl commercials, the whole deal with all of it. How do you go up against that? And I talked with Rob about it. I said, hey, we cannot win against one of these companies based upon simply saturating our message across the board because we can't do that.
Right.
So that means that our message has to be better and it has to be more innovative in order to gain the traction that we need. And on the real estate agent side of everything, guess what, everybody? We have to change. We have to be open to using the things, but grabbing them and running with it. For, like I said, it's literally been 20 years. I remember when Trulia and Zillow came to Windermere and said, hey, guess what? We're starting out. We want your agents to use our platform and we're going to cut our prices in half so you guys can do that and use it. But like, I cannot name really anything that has been innovative that has changed in that 20 years since I began my career to where we are now. And that's why we want to do what we're doing, because we think it's time. We think it's time that there's a system out there that rewards the agents and the home buyers and the home sellers, but also educates them to what's going on behind the scenes so that they can make educated decisions.
Love that. Okay, guys, we are like a little over time. I'm so sorry. It happens sometimes. I'm like, good conversation. Okay, so the final question I have for you is if you could give any advice to, because people listening are going to be in real estate, there's going to be some entrepreneurs on here. So if you could give advice to a beginning entrepreneur, what would that be?
I'll take it and then you can run with it. On my end of things, I will say this. I listened to the CEO of NVIDIA the other day, and I think this came out like a week or two ago. And he said, hey, if you're going to do this type of thing, work-life balance needs to go out the window. And I will say this, that if you're starting, if you're going to start any business, small, big, medium, whatever the deal is with all of it, you need to be aware of that work-life balance doesn't exist. Now, at a certain point, you want to bring that back in. You do want to have a goal of saying, hey, once I get to this point, and be aware of it and be cognizant of it. But if you're going to start, whether it's a small business, medium or large, work-life balance is going to go out the window, and you better have that drive and determination to succeed at all costs. And I will say this, and I don't mean to discourage anybody, but if you don't have that, don't do it. Like just go to a normal 9-to-5 job. There's nothing disrespectful about it. All work is honorable. I truly do believe that. Go there, state jobs, whatever it is, take your every week paycheck or every 2 weeks, but you are not going to get through the hurdles that are going to come through as a business owner and building a business if you don't have that drive where you're okay cleaning the bathrooms and also carrying that title of being a co-founder CEO, because that title of co-founder CEO, it includes emptying the garbages, and you better be willing to do all of that at the very beginning or else you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I got 2 little bits of advice. The first one that I would say is know the why behind your what. You can say, hey, my goal is to make $1 million a year by the time I hit this age. And that's great. But you need to know why. Why do you want to make that $1 million? And if you're a parent and you get up and you look at your little one still sleeping as you're going out the door and you're sacrificing time with your family, sacrificing that work-life balance, you got to know, why are you giving that up? It's for them. If that's what's really driving you, then you need to know that, because there's going to come times when the amount of money coming in is not worth. I mean, it cannot just be about the money. Because here's the deal. If money is truly the only thing that makes people happy, then then rich people would never commit suicide. And we know that that's not true. So it's not just money. That means there's more to life. So you got to know what is truly driving you and why are you doing this? The other thing is you need to have a big dose of reality. A lot of entrepreneurs are type A personalities and we're high achievers and we can do a lot of stuff on our own. But the truth is you are not going to be the best person at everything, and you're not even going to be good at everything. And so know your weaknesses, work on improving those weaknesses, but surround yourself with people that can shore you up in those areas where you're weak. I know I've got ADHD up the wazoo, and I do not manage my own calendar because what happens is you say, hey, Rob, you want to be on my podcast at 2:30? And I go, yeah, absolutely. And then Chad goes, you want to go grab lunch at 3? I go, absolutely. And I can't be in two places at once. I still haven't figured out how to do that.
Oh, please. It's like 2:30 for the podcast and lunch at 2:30.
Well, yes. And so then,
podcast, it's cool.
Right? So I've learned I need to have my assistant have full control of my calendar. I had a guy call me today and he said, let me just give you my Calendly link and we can jump on and have a quick conversation. And he's a guy that is an AI developer. I said, listen, I would love to do that, but my assistant, it's a rule. My assistant handles my calendar because if I do it, I'm going to mess something up, man. I said, out of respect to you and your time, just be patient. Holiday week coming up. And so after Thanksgiving, you'll get an email and you'll get a link to Calendly. And he completely understood, but I just had to learn the areas where I wasn't good and then surround myself with people that are good in those areas. I don't have to be the expert in every single thing. Chad doesn't know nearly as much about technology, but he calls a shot. He says, hey, listen, I want this done. How can we do it? He doesn't need to know how it's done. And as a matter of fact, when he asked me, how's it going? And I start giving him reports about how we're integrating the API keys on the back end and, how we're moving certain bits of data and how we upgraded this.
That's my exact same look on my face.
So I go, well,
I just need to know yes, no, and when it's going to be done. I don't need to know everything that goes in the in-between time of all of it. Just let's yes, no, when is it done?
But sometimes I like to give him those reports with the big technical jargon. So just to watch him squirm.
I'll tell you what, I had that same conversation with my ops manager the other day because he gave me a report. He were doing some shopping for a couple other things right now. He gave me a report and I was like, dude, there is so much on here. My brain is done. You fried my brain. He's like, well, I need all that information. And I was like, I know you do, but I don't.
Yeah,
so I totally get it.
Cliff notes it. That's all I need. I don't bother you about everything on my end of things.
No.
You get bored. So yeah, but he's right. I know you're over time, but I talked with one business owner when I first started and he was very successful in his business. But he said, hey, you need to learn what you don't know. And then you need to surround yourself with people that are better at it than you. And that's been tough, right? When you're a product type A, and I know you are, Lene, is that you're like, hey, in order to get it done at the quality that I want it done at, in the time frame I want it done on, I have to have my fingers in the pie. And one of the most difficult things is for me is to remove my fingers from the pie and trust the people that are handling it. And that's a hard one, right? And that's where the trust, when he talked about that earlier story, that had to be gained and that had to be earned in order to have that happen. So
yeah, love that. Such good advice. Everyone paying attention, listen, success leaves clues. Chad and Rob just gave you a lot of clues to their success. Go check out the platform, swyvvl.com, not SWV.
No,
swyvvl.com.
good song.
And everyone, thanks so much, Chad, Rob. You guys have been great. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'll see everyone else on the next episode.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.